Alright YouTube, what's happening? We are doing a new video today on a couple different Wii knives here. These are in on a pass around, and wanted to thank Wii Knives for sending these around to quite a few YouTubers. Gives us the ability to get our hands on a lot of really nice knives, but not have to fork out all the money for them. So let's start ahead. We're going to start with the Zephyr. This is one that's been on my want list for a long time. When it first came out, I was really digging this style and the dimensions. And I wanted to, I almost actually bought one at Blade HQ one day. Ended up taking home a different knife that day. So this was cool for me to be able to get a chance to take a look at this knife. So, well, before I get really deep into the review, I do want to kind of just go over the basic specs of the knife. We're looking at a frame lock flipper with M390 blade steel. Overall length is 7.9 inches. Blade is 3.5. Cutting edge is 3.75 because a little bit of a sharpening tool there. Your blade thickness is, your blade width, excuse me, 1.25 inches, so it's a pretty wide blade. And the blade stock is 1.16 or 0.16, excuse me, 0.16 inches thick. M390 steel, like I mentioned, 59 to 61 hard point, or excuse me, rock point on that. Rockwell, not rock point. 4.4 inch handle, so almost about perfect size. The handle width is 1.125 inches. The thickness is 0.55 inches, and it weighs 4 ounces. So pretty lightweight knife. Good size. I really like the size. That's one of my favorite things about it. It's just about right for my hand. So let's go over. It's on like a ceramic bearings. You have titanium hardware everywhere. It is Torx, which is a huge plus for Wii because sometimes they do those star. Do like the pocket clip quite a bit. Let's show how that works out in the pants real quick when I'm thinking about it. So it's pretty deep carry. You don't have a whole lot of knife coming up out of the pocket there, which I like. And the clip works very well, has good retention. One of my favorite parts about this knife is, first of all, is the amazing action it has. It's so smooth. It nearly falls shut. I mean, it pretty much does. Not quite, but it's very, very smooth. It's got a good detent for flipping and for using the thumb hole, which is very rare. Usually it's kind of, if they dial it in for the thumb hole, it's too light on the flipper, and if it's too strong on the flipper, you can't use the thumb hole. You can middle finger flick this knife. It has lots of just the deployment is really good, really nice. The handle is super ergonomic. That's another thing I really like about it. Very good in the hand, just so comfortable. This jimping on the thumb ramp is perfect. It's not too aggressive, but the thumb ramp is like literally perfect. This is one of those knives that I've got in my hand, and I think, man, someone made this directly for me, for my hand. This is a knife that fits my hand perfect. May not be the same for everyone, but for me it is just about perfect. The carbon fiber inlays are beautiful and well executed. There's no gaps. It's all flush. Feels really nice. Nice carbon fiber on both sides. So that's always a nice touch there. I mentioned the Torx screws as being a big plus. Obviously M390 is a plus in this. Any kind of knife that has M390 is going to be good. One thing I will say about the blade is it has a nice belly, really good belly on that so it's going to be a pretty good slicer and pretty good cutter. Or it would be a good slicer, but one of the negatives on the knife is it's a little thick behind the edge. I measured it at 0.255, so not 0.0255, excuse me, not way thick, but could be thinner, and the factory edge was not good out of the box. I mean, I am the second person to have this knife, and I highly doubt that the first person that had it was able to dull it that fast, but it's actually not very sharp, and we've kind of been instructed on these to not sharpen the knives. So I did a little stropping trying to get it to, I can't find paper right now, so I'll try to get a little arm hair shaving, and it will shave arm hair pretty decently. So it's not dull, but it's not very sharp, and it sometimes has an issue with paper. So that was one thing. It's a little thick behind the edge, not bad. And the blade thickness, or the blade stock is pretty thick. I like that they're going to then their new models, the Wisp and the Rectifier, have 0.1 inch. Blade stock, so very thin, so that'll be good slicers, and I'm hoping they'll be thin behind the edge. They should be. So that's another thing that's kind of I'm looking forward to on the new models. We has kind of had some of their models have thicker, be a little bit thick behind the edge. So It's a little wide in the pocket if we're talking about negatives. Because of the thumb hole, the bird's eye type hole, it's a little wide. It's not bad, but some people like their knives to be a little slimmer, kind of like the 940. The Skaha too there is pretty thin. Obviously the Array is very, very thin in the pocket, so it's a little wide, but not horrible. And another thing I'm not terribly fond of is this full-length back spacer. I would have really liked to have seen either standoffs or just kind of a smaller back spacer back here maybe. Kind of like how they did it on the Array. I like that look a lot better, like a kind of a more open design. It's not like the blade's going to catch your finger back there or anything. The centering and everything came perfect out of the box, and like I said, the action is fantastic. The best I've actually felt on a Wii knife, for kind of a smaller blade especially. And I would say the price point on these is just sub $300, so kind of expensive for. I mean, you're getting top-notch materials with M390 blade steel, carbon fiber, titanium hardware. Some people may scoff at that price a little bit because of the country of origin. That shouldn't play too much into it though, because it's so well manufactured and so well made. But I could see it being more in the 250 range. 300 is a little high, for my opinion. So yeah, that kind of sums up my brief thoughts on the Wii knife's Zephyr. I carried this knife for about a week, and I did really enjoy carrying it. And I'm actually going to purchase one eventually one of these days. They're really, but I may end up not purchasing it and getting the Wisp instead, just because it has very similar materials, but it's thinner and a little bit smaller knife. And this is actually a really good size, but so we'll see. But that's definitely a nice Wii model, one of my favorite Wii models that I've reviewed and had my hands on. I'm definitely glad I got the chance to check it out. And like I said, I could see myself owning one of these here in the near future. So let's talk about the Array next. It is a much thinner knife, as you can see, a lot different design, kind of on the other spectrum, because you have, on this one you have a wide blade with a lot of belly, you know, pretty decent sized handle. This is very slim, very, very slim blade, very slim handle, kind of a much more what I want to call stabby knife. Right out of the box, the first thing I thought was, oh man, that thing's stabby. That's just like the first thing that came to mind was it's got a really, really fine point and just a really short, I mean long but slender blade profile. It does have an interesting thumb twirl here, which we'll talk about in a minute. So the out of the box impressions for this one was, you know, like I said, long, thin, stabby, but I like that style of knife. I like a Quaken-esque style knife. I like a, you know, thinner handle. I like that the blade is pretty much all in the handle. I love that on knives. So this one definitely spoke to me a little bit. Different materials on this one. Let's go over the basic specs. 8.4 inch overall length, so about a ½ inch longer than the Zephyr. You have a blade length of 3.75. Cutting edge of 3.125. So you have this choil, which I'm not a fan of. I'll talk about that in a minute. Blade width is 0.75, so very slim, less than an inch. Blade thickness is 0.16. Again, can be a little thinner on the blade. It's S35 steel instead of M390 this time. You have a drop point blade, obviously with a flat grind. You have 4.75 inches in the handle. The width is 0.83 inches, and the thickness is 0.5. And which is interesting because it's a thinner knife. You think it would be a little thin this way, but it's pretty standard on that side. 3.4 ounces, so pretty light. And this one is designed by Simon Crafts. He's done a few knife designs for Wii, and they've all been kind of similar. And I like the Slipstream model. It's very similar to this one. Okay, so out of the box, the good things. Had a really nice factory edge, very sharp, different than the Zephyr. The Zephyr, maybe the Zephyr just got used a lot by the previous reviewer, but definitely this one has a much better blade out of the edge out of the box. Excuse me. The handle is comfortable. It's a pretty neutral handle design. It has a nice forward choil here for your finger, and it just kind of sits in there. It's got good ergonomics. Not like fantastic. Like the Zephyr felt so good in my hand. This one feels fine, but not, you know, not great, but not bad either. Really, one thing I really like is this jimping here on the blade and then on the handle. It's in the perfect spot, and it's like the perfect amount of jimping, and it's not too aggressive. It's not going to like cut up your thumb. It's not going to like be abrasive, but it really locks it in. And I like that I have it in back here, then up here. So if you do want to use that forward choil to choke up on the knife, you can do that. No, I don't. We'll talk about that in the bad. So let's keep on going with the good. Really nice action on this one, nice and snappy on the flipper. Not quite as smooth as the Zephyr though, out of the box. I do, like I said, I mentioned how it's completely closed in the handle. It does have a nice pocket clip, also titanium, like the rest of the hardware. And I'll show you how that carries in the pocket now. Pretty deep, got a little bit hanging out, not too bad. The Zephyr was a little deeper. I like the smaller backspacer on this one. I mentioned that in the Zephyr part of the video. I like this. I like this little lanyard attachment. I don't do lanyards, but I can see why you might do this on a thinner blade like that. I like the fuller, the blood groove here on the blade. It looks really nice. And the titanium hardware, just the overall manufacturing is top notch, as normal as you'd expect from Wii knives. The bad, the cons. Blade stock's a little thick, especially for a knife, especially for a small, thin blade profile. I don't get the thickness of the blade at all. The forward choil makes kind of like no sense to me at all, because a lot of times you see forward choils on like smaller blades, and they kind of put it forward so you have, you can get a full 4-finger grip on the blade. On this one, I don't see yourself choking up so much, and it takes so much of the cutting edge away. I mean, it's a 3.75-inch blade, but it actually has less cutting edge than this Zephyr does, which is a smaller. When you actually go cutting edge to cutting edge, the Zephyr actually has more blade. So kind of interesting. You're getting this big long blade, but you're not getting as much cutting edge. So not a huge fan of that. Like I said, the forward choil. It's a little long in the handle. I would have loved to have seen like this blade at like 3¼ inch and handle like 4¼ 4½. Still have that same kind of blade profile. Kind of just get rid of that choil, and you'd have a nice, good size. Guys with larger hands might really like that, but they also might find the knife to be too thin. So, it just depends. Just overall, the aesthetics of the knife don't really speak to me as much as like the Zephyr does. It's a nice looking knife, and I do love this part of the aesthetics where the blade is completely closed in the handle. But other than that, it just kind of leaves something to be desired for me. Overall, my price point is just under $250 for this, which is kind of a stretch for S35. Again, I think 200, 225 range would be good. You have like a competing ZT here with 20 CV in a very similar size with very similar materials, and it's $240. But this has 20 CV versus S35, so more like M390 still. So that's something to kind of compare it to, and a nice competitive option. 0.027 behind the edge was the thickness, so not, again, like actually a little bit thicker behind the edge than the Zephyr, and it didn't, again, make a lot of sense because you have such a slim blade profile. To me, I feel like it should be ground a lot thinner than that. So, but overall, both of these knives are fantastic offerings from Wii. They may not be, the Array might not be my cup of tea, and there's a few things that I would improve on the Zephyr, but overall, I would definitely own both of these knives, especially the Zephyr. I think that's more my style. Let me do one more size comparison with these knives to a few common. Here's a Benchmade 940. So the Zephyr and the 940 are almost identical, and I brought in that ZT 393 earlier. That's a bigger knife, bigger than the Zephyr, about the same size as the Array, but with a lot more cutting edge again. And then I don't know if I'm gonna get this in frame. Yep, the two Sun knives, TS76, I believe this one is very similar in size to these three right here. So just some size comparisons for you guys. But I want to again thank Wii Knives for sending these over. Being part of the pass around is awesome, guys. Being able to get these in hand, not have to fork out the what would that be, $250, and I mean $550 for these two knives. That's a lot of money right here on the table. And for them to send us to these and to be able to get a chance to review them, carry them, use them, they want our honest opinion. They're going to get it, especially on my channel. So any questions or comments, leave them down below, guys. Thanks for watching, and we will see you on the next video.